Hey everybody, welcome to our next episode of this webinar series with Beth Poss. There she is. I'm Mike Murata. I'm the director of the Assistive Tech Advocacy Center. Hello, thanks for being here. I don't have anything else to say, quite honestly. I'm just vamping, so there's no reason to.
Okay.
Beth, take it away. Thank you for being here.
All right, my pleasure. Well, hello everybody. So glad to have you here again for those of you that are showing up for a second or third time even, and for those of you who are just joining me for the first time, that's awesome. So glad to have you. So we're going to talk about math today and supporting young children with disabilities. So you can hop onto the slide deck if you want to have that. It should be right there at bit.ly/NJ early math. And I'm just going to keep going then with stuff. So again, my financial disclosures is that I do work for Lesson Picks, but this is not a Lesson Picks session. I might show a couple things, but anything I have in here that is Lesson Picks oriented is free for you guys. You can also use the QR code right here to hop onto this. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, my email is posbeth@gmail. My Twitter is @posbeth, and Instagram, I finally figured out my first name first and my last name last, and I am on Instagram at BethPos. So please go ahead and tweet out what you're learning or post something on Instagram on your story. Love to see it all. I'm gonna pull up the chat so that I can have that. And yes, thank you for posting that up there. So hi everybody from wherever you are. Arizona, it's a little bit earlier there. You guys are, it's like 9 o'clock. So in the chat, if you guys want to post, or you can just think out loud to yourselves and I won't hear you. Which activity, I've got two things up on the screen, right? Kids playing with blocks, and then I've got a really cute animal worksheet, but which one is more engaging to kids, right? Which one? Give it a second, and then I'm gonna go on the next one. I think we're all thinking that the blocks one is more engaging to kids, right? Which activity, so here's another question. Which activity supports development of mathematics understanding? Okay, so we've got a count and match one. That's very mathy, right? But then we've got kids playing in the sand table. Yeah, play. I mean, we might do some math work with that, and it's okay, but those kids are learning a whole lot about quantity and about more and less and counting. There's so many things you can do right in that sensory table. Being able to physically manipulate those blocks, Amy, thank you. All right, this is not really a trick question, but which activity encourages problem solving? Now, remember this one on the picture there, like of the tree and everything, that's technology, right? Okay, and we're here because like technology, but we've got the kids playing in the play store. So which one encourages problem solving, right? So I know people are sitting typing and everything, but we're gonna move on. But it's playing in the toy store, right? Meaningful real life scenarios. So we are gonna talk about technology in this session today, but we're really gonna talk about, and if we go back for people that have been on my other sessions and thinking about the way that we use apps the most meaningful way for young children, we're really gonna look for things that are not drill and that are not only one right answer type of things, okay? So there are some foundational skills with math that every student needs to be able to have in order to be successful as they go along. We're going to take a look at not all of them, but many of them, because we only have like a half hour or 45 minutes. So we're going to take a look at sets and number sense and counting and number. It's bothering me now. I'm looking at this. Some things are capitalized and some things are not. I need to fix that. Number sense and counting and number and operations. And I've got that on there twice. Oh yes. You can tell it's been one of those mornings. Spatial relationships and shapes. And then data analysis and measurement are just as important. We just don't have enough time to get to everything today, which is all good. Okay, so if you want some more very specific, and we're going to talk about each of those, but if you want a really deep dive into all of this, I highly recommend the book, Big Ideas in Early Mathematics Instruction. It is out of the Erickson Institute, the Early Math Collaborative from the Erickson Institute, and they also have a fabulous website. And so I highly, highly recommend this book. It is one of my favorites. I know I talked about some literacy books, but I'll put this right up there from the math side of things with the literacy books that I talked about the last couple of sessions that we did in this series. One of my favorite books. So let's talk a little bit about sets. So I've got a laundry basket full of balls in there, right? So let's talk about what a set is. So attributes can be used to sort collections. So I've got a collection of balls there. And I can use those attributes to sort those into sets. And that same collection of balls can be sorted in many different ways. And then those sets can be compared and ordered. So I want you guys to think about the balls that you're seeing there and some of the ways that you might be able to sort those into sets. And go ahead and post it in the chat, some of the ways that you might sort those into sets. We did a little bit of this when we talked about the sorting the letters, right? We talked about it could be capitals and curvies and lowercase and by color. So think about the same thing here with those balls. So we've got big or small balls, right? We could have all the big ones in one set and the little small ones in another set. What else could we say? The colors or the textures, right? And we've got ones that have like the wiffle ball ones that have the holes in it, and that could be one set. And then we could have the ones that are the sports ones, right? And then the little squishy fuzzy ones. So lots of different ways that we could sort our balls. And then we could compare them. So even within some of those, if we sorted them by like squishy versus hard, there might be sizes within there that we could order them and compare them in those ways. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about sets, is all those different ways that we can look at a group of objects. So let's play a little bit. And I know you guys are thinking I'm obsessed with this app, and I totally am. Oh my goodness, I forgot to do one quick thing. Let me do that. I've got to get my iPad up for you guys to see. So give me a sec. Oh, function. I like what Andrea put. She's got like the function of it. That is really, that's a really great one. Let me get this. You guys are so good while I'm keep putting ideas in there while I'm connecting my iPad super fast. No time at all. And I know people have asked before. I use Reflector 3 is the name of the app, and it makes it super easy to connect and share my screen wirelessly. So I'm going back into the magnetic alphabet app. Let me move it onto the screen so you guys can see it, right? This is the one we looked at both for reading and for writing. Now we're going to look at it from the math perspective. So this time I've got a funky background up there, but of course, if you had a kid with more significant visual impairments and you didn't want the distractions of that, you could completely just have that dark background that we've had in the past. But with this one, I'm going to throw some things up there that kids could have some fun with, and we could sort these into sets, right? Let's get some different ones up here. I've got all sorts of funky guys here. So we could, let's make sure we've got a few that are there. I don't want all the same numbers. Okay, all right, so I got a bunch of stuff up on here, right? And we can sort these into sets. So taking that idea of the magnets, and I could have done this with numbers. We talked about doing this with letters. I'm spinning my wheel, right? I've got all these other shapes I could have my little cutouts that we all can make in our schools. But this is just a fun one that we could do. Oh, there's some more little monsters. I was looking for those before and I didn't see them. Right, so I could sort these into all of the ones that have blue, right? So these guys all are blue, and I could talk about how many. I could sort the ones that all have 2 eyes. So all of these have 2 eyes. I don't know if you would say these have 2 eyes. I guess those do have 2 eyes too. I could sort all the one-eyed ones. I've got all my, I'm going to subitize really quickly and tell you that those have 5 eyes. Here's another one. You can only see one of his eyes, so we could have a debate about whether he was a one-eyed creature or a 2-eyed creature. So again, just a different way, and we could do this with so many different things, but having this on the iPad, super easy for a student with some motor needs to be able to quickly swipe things around on that iPad. So just want to be able to show you that we can play a little bit with that. Let me move that off to the side and keep going. All right, let's talk a little bit about counting. And counting is the relationship between numbers and quantity. Counting can be used to find out how many things are in a collection. So let's go back to that idea, like sets and collections, right? And counting has rules that apply to any collection. And I feel like in counting, we often get stuck on that one-to-one correspondence, but we don't necessarily look developmentally at all of the things that we need to do. So the first developmental rule in counting, that phase one, is that stable order. And that's the idea that no matter how I count this, it's still, it doesn't matter. I'm always going to count like 1, 2, 3. Numbers have a stable order. That's that rote counting, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not 6, 9, 8, 3, 4, right? That numbers have a stable, so it's that rote. Then we get into that one-to-one correspondence where I'm touching 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, right? So that I know that. And I feel like sometimes we stop there. We work on rote counting and we work on one-to-one correspondence, and then we don't explicitly look at some of these other things. And so that's the idea. Phase 3 is that order irrelevance, that it doesn't matter if I count this starting at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, I'm still going to get to 13. It doesn't matter if I started at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm still going to get to 13. It doesn't matter if I zigzag all around. That no matter how I organize the way that I'm counting the objects, they're still the same number of objects there. And then we get into cardinality, and it's that idea that the number that I stop on is the number of objects that there are in that set, right? Or in that collection. So when I end at 13, and then I say, how many are there, that it's 13, right? So I could have that one-to-one correspondence and still not get that number that I'm ending on is the number in that set. And then ordinality is the idea of the first, second, third, like, so this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one, this is the fourth one, right? So getting into that. So making sure that when we're talking about counting, that we don't just stop at one-to-one correspondence, that we really teach all of those. So let's talk a little bit about number sense. Number sense is the quantity is an attribute of the set, right, of objects. So these are all ducks. That's one attribute of the set. These are all yellow. That's one attribute of this set. But another attribute of the set is that there are 4 of them, okay? And we use a number to name specific quantities. And there's an important term that I think people are becoming more and more aware of, because it's been a part of our early childhood standards now, is that the quantity of a small collection can be intuitively perceived without counting. So you and I, we can look at that and we didn't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We just looked at it and we knew it was 4. Subitizing is a very important skill as you get into mathematics. But it's something that we really need to be explicit and work on with kids. And there's research that shows that from a very young age, children, not just students, when they're babies, that they have an understanding of some simple basic understanding of size and subitizing. So when researchers offered babies 2 bottles, and one had significantly more milk in it than the other, or formula, whatever they were using, was in it than the other, the babies reached out for the fuller milk bottle. So they knew at a very young age, that idea that there was more in there than that. So they could, without having to like look and measure it or anything like that, that they knew that it was. Then if we want to talk about crows, so you want to talk about babies, okay? So we're talking like at 6 months of age. Then if we want to talk about crows will intuitively go to, not know how to go to the pile of shiny objects of things that they want to build in their nest, and they will go to the pile that has more things in it than less. So we need to make sure when we're talking about these things that we don't underestimate the skills that we can be working on with even some of our younger students or our more significantly complex students. So it's very important as we learn how to subitize, as we talk about counting and that number sense, is that we learn to represent numbers a variety of ways, right? So that we're showing lots of different ways that that same number can be represented. So I've got two little cutout puzzles here, right? This is a lesson picks activity. If you click on it, it will take you in. It is free, a free download for you guys. And obviously this is something to use to cut up on when you're back in your physical classrooms, but that you can represent that number 3 with 3 fingers, with 3 objects, with the 3 on the dice, the 4, that there's different ways that I can look at this. And it's important that students be able to generalize and see all of those things quickly and realize they all mean the same thing, that they all mean 3. Another way that we could look at that is with quantity cards. This is from the Erickson Math Collaborative. I already have it open here. And I just want to show you, this is there's the book, right? The early mathematics book, but then there's also this website, the Erickson Institute Early Math Collaborative. I really encourage you to sign up for it. They send out an occasional, maybe once a month, emails, but they have all these different activities, resources that you can download. So these quantity cards can be downloaded. And then there's always wonderful videos that talk about them. So you can see here's the quantity cards that can be downloaded, and talks about making a matching game and capture game and dot pattern chart. So different things that you can do with those cards. So it's a fabulous resource, a fabulous website. Really love it. Number operations. So when we start talking about numbers and operations, we are talking, that's when we're starting to talk about addition and subtraction, but let's boil it down and make it a little simpler than that. It's the idea that sets can be changed by adding items or taking items away, and that we can compare sets using that attribute of numerosity, of the numbers in there, and that they can be ordered by more than, less than, or equal to. And then what's really important, and there's been a lot of conversation in this in curriculum over the last number of years, about that composing and decomposing numbers, right? So that a quantity, which is the whole, and the whole can change, right? The whole is not always the same number, but the quantity can be decomposed into equal or unequal parts, and the parts can be composed to form a whole. And so this is a really good illustration here of it, just like with simple Post-it notes that I like, where you can see just that pattern, that there is a pattern to it, right? And that what are 5 and 0 are 0 and 5. And so it's a really great illustration of how you can look at that. The 1 and 4, the 4 and 1, the 2 and 3, the 3 and 2, right? That we can look at that. So that's what number and operations. So let's take a look at another really important part of that number and operations that has to do with number sense. It has to do with that subitizing and that idea of how are we going to start understanding how we can compose and decompose numbers. And it's around the ideas of the benchmarks of 5 and 10. And how important the benchmarks of 5 and 10 are. So this is a couple of examples of some 10 frames. And traditionally, you would see the 10 frames sort of looking like this, right? But it's the understanding of that importance of not always having your 10 frame looking exactly the same, that a 10 frame doesn't have to be filled in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that we can have different groupings, right? So I can have my 3 and my 2 over here, and that's going to give me 5, and then how many are left to be filled in to give me 10. Then I've got my 5 and 3 here, and then I've got my 2 right there. So making sure that we're still seeing that. And I'm going to take you into, so I have this linked here, into a website called the Math Learning Center. I love this, and I feel like I'm going to show a lot of their different apps in here because I think their apps are so powerful, first of all, and second of all, because they're available web-based. You can install them on an iPad, or you can install them on a Chromebook. So they're available multiple ways. I really like the fact that so I can go ahead and I can get my frame here. I can choose, I could start with a 5 frame, I can go a 10 frame, I can even go 20 or 100. We're talking about younger kids right now, so we're gonna do, so we're just gonna do that 5 frame, right? And we're gonna go ahead and do that 5 frame there. Okay, so I can have my 5 frame. I should be able to enlarge that. That's all right. I'm not gonna, let's try that one more time. Okay, well, we won't worry about the fact that I wasn't, usually I've been able to enlarge these, but it may have been on the iPad where I was able to stretch them out. This is doing it on the web base. So again, I can get my counters in, so we could put those together if we want. We could have 2 separate 5 frames. I can put my counters in. I've got them set up already, so if I want as in sets of 5, so if I were to drag those out, it would automatically fill there, right? I could also change it, so if I want something a little different, if I was talking about counting penguins or counting butterflies, that I'd be able to do that, being able to change the colors, so depending on a student's visual acuity, if you needed a particular color for something, that you'd be able to change the colors of things as well. So just to be able to kind of show that there's a whole lot more that you can do here with these, but just to kind of show you the basics of that right now, and understanding those importance of that. So continue as we kind of talk about the importance of that 5 and 10 is another tool that you can use is called a number rack or a reckon rack. There's a great number talk here that I encourage you guys to watch that really goes into detail about using a reckon rack, and we're not gonna play that right now, but I want to make sure that you guys see that it's there and you can take some time. You've got access to the slide deck and be able to watch that. So I am going to, whoops, I'm going to go back. I thought I had that hyperlink. I'll make sure it is. Let's go back to this one. There's a Reckon Rec that is a digital one. And of course, it is one of the apps that is in the Math Learning Center. And I'll go in and show you that home page. Let's, whoops, math, type math learning. There we go. Okay. So their whole website here, just so that you guys can take a look at it, you can see all of the free math apps. They have a curriculum that's for sale, but you don't need to purchase the curriculum to use their free math apps. All of the downloads on iPad are free. All of the downloads on a Chromebook are free. And they have some of them that are able to, including the number rack, that from a digital perspective, for digital learning, that you can work collaboratively. So just to see, there's the number frames, and then here's that number rack. And just so I can sort of, go in, open the web app and show you. Open the web app and show you. There we go. Okay. So the idea with a Reckon Rack is that, and with this you can add additional rows, take additional rows away, is that everything is slid over to the right side, and that the beads are 10 on each row, with 5 of one color and 5 of another. And again, it's because of the importance of understanding that, and see, I can slide them easily. If I was doing this on an iPad or a touch screen device, I'd be able to use my finger and drag it along. They sell desktop versions of these as far as physical ones. And again, so I can visually see, like if I move 4 over here, that I have 5, that visually I can very quickly understand and know that that's 5 plus 1 more is 6, and that I have 6 over here. To be able to do that. If I wanted to move over here, I have 5 red ones. I know that. I don't have to think real hard about that because we've established those benchmarks of 5 and 10, right, with that. So let me show you one of my favorite DIY projects. This is a DIY Reckon Rec. It is made with PVC pipe and pool noodles. And the directions are linked in here, right there. But this is what you need: is you need 6 10-inch and 2 26-inch and 2 30-inch, 4 caps, 2 C joints, 4 T joints, and then 10 noodle pieces of one color and 10 noodle pieces of another color. what I really like about this is it is great for young kids to stand at. So getting them up and physically moving, not always having to sit, but it's also fantastic for a kid in a wheelchair to be able to wheel up to, or a child who's in a particular seating, that they could be able to wheel up to it. And obviously you could adjust the height of the Rec and Rec by cutting your PVC pipes a little bit differently if you needed to adjust it for a certain height for a student in a chair or in seating equipment. And then the pool noodles are so nice, and you make sure that you've got the right size PVC pipe so that the pool noodles slide easily, and a student, even if they need to use an adapted grip or a stick or something like that, that they'd be able to easily move those pool noodles along. It's large, it's visually bold, pick colored noodles that are going to be the most appropriate for that student's visual needs. So again, one of my favorites. I actually did a make and take for this, not last year, but the year before, for 100 people, and I came with enough DIY of this all cut up. My husband was working for days getting that set up. So I want to, when we're talking about access and all of that, I want to make sure that we think about make learning life-sized for kids. These are young children, and they need to be up and they need to be moving around, and not everything, the same way that worksheet, not everything needs to be small and on a piece of paper or even small and on a tablet. So think about using your painter's tape or using your whatever you're able to be in your rooms. Make sure your building service people are not going to be upset with you for whatever that's why I say, like, the painter's tape peels up off of the floor really easily, off of the carpet without leaving it sticky, or the tables. But you know, we've got this where the child was using stuffed animals for their 10 frame. Or I love the one of where they are using the kids themselves in their 10 frame, and where they've got the tabletop of a 10 frame. And kids could be working collaboratively on that. So again, those opportunities for making things big and large. Back to my favorite website of all time when it comes to early mathematics is the Math Learning website, and they have fabulous pre-K story collections that have that are downloadable. They come in EPUB form, PDF. They come in Spanish and in English, so highly accessible to a wide variety. And they're math oriented, so they've got a few different ones, a number of different ones in there, including ones like they've got counting stories, count and play. They're all around mathematics, and I believe it's the ladybug and butterflies one, where there's other ones too that has the ladybug, how many spots on a ladybug has the 10 frames in it that I have, like, in that image there, right? So being able to do that. Let's talk a little bit, switching gears, let's talk a little bit about spatial relationships. So when we talk about that big idea of spatial relationships, it is that things can be visualized and manipulated mentally, and that our own experiences of space and two-dimensional representations of space reflect a specific point of view. Okay, and that relationships between objects and places can be represented with mathematical precision. So if you think about that, we can think all the way out into much higher level math, but let's bring it down a little bit and talk about spatial relationships in terms of kids and students. So you see the chalk drawing that I have there, but I'm going to show you, I've got to connect again. My iPad stopped mirroring, so let's go ahead and get that connected. If it doesn't, we'll move on from it. There's a set of apps from Idoki Academy. I really, really like their apps. It's not coming up. Let me close that and I'll bring it back up again. Just give me a second to do that. I'm going to skip on to the next page and then I'll come back to this. We'll talk a little bit more about blocks. It was so funny to watch that make and take. Oh yeah, Mike, you were there. I think it was pouring, and either you or Chris helped me bring everything in from my car, all of this stuff in.
It was both of us, because there was so much stuff.
Yeah, because there was like bags and buckets of stuff. I know, it was pretty hysterical. I forgot, that's right, you were there. Okay, so now I've got with that little bit of conversation, I've got my my iPad back up, and let's go and take a look at Busy Shapes from Idoki Academy. So I love this. It's a great problem solving app. It does it provides a lot of it's not a VR, it's not a virtual reality, but I do like the way that there's some sort of mimics of that where you've got that sense of space and everything. So with this, I need to be able to get this in, whoops, it doesn't work when you move the image on the computer that's I have to touch my iPad. I always do that. And so the cool thing is as I'm dragging it through that, like puddle, it's harder to drag it through it. Like it kind of knows it and it makes that little squishy noise. So I finally can get it to go in there. It's taking me through it. It starts at a very simple level. I'm like partway into a student's profile right now. And so now I've got more like, well, what am I going to move? Am I going to move that? No, that's not going to, if I go, I can try it. But it doesn't penalize me and it brings it back. That's part of that problem solving, that understanding where I need to go. And how am I going to get that around there to get that in? Okay, how am I going to go? I could go around. Is there a better way? What happens if I try to go through it? It is harder, and then it pops out and it moves faster. So this is from Adobe Academy. It's called, once you see it goes, it'll go in there, right? But it's going to pop back up because it is asking me to match it to the color there, right? So we can have those conversations of like, you're right, that circle did fit in there, but I think that it matches that color better. They have a number of different really nice math apps where there's not right or wrong. There are right or wrong answers, but it's encouraging that problem solving and that spatial relations to get there. Let me drag that back off. I am definitely going over today. And we'll go to the next slide. Okay, I want to talk about the importance of block play. It's so critical for students, for children, for young children. And we need to go beyond just stacking blocks and knocking them down, although that's an important part of it. So there's a screenshot there from a friend of mine's Instagram page from a few years back. And she had posted this and she's like, future urban planner. And I was like, exactly, that's it. It's so important, that block play for developing those skills. I'm gonna show you guys an app. I'm gonna talk about some different ways to play with blocks, but I am gonna show you an app. It is hard to find a good app on or a computer program which is block play. There's things out there for like Jenga and for like Minecraft and all of those kinds of things, but for that very simple level. So this is the best one I've been able to find. There used to be another one which actually is the screenshot and it's gone. It's not on the App Store anymore, so I don't show it. And this one I know has that ad at the top, and I've tried to like see, it is free, and I've tried to see could I purchase like the full version, and there's not a full version. It's just the app. It's just the free version that has that ad. But the ad isn't a horrible ad, so I kind of just go with it. So with this, it allows you to pull blocks down from the sky. But what I want to show you is that the blocks act like blocks, okay? They fall when they don't balance, and things fall over. And I can take the blocks that I put, and I can manipulate them, and I can move them around, so I can create different block structures, right? So I'm moving this all with my finger. Right now I have it set so the blocks are random. You can see the question mark there at the bottom there, but I can change that so I can just get a particular shape block. So if I want just a certain shape block, I can get multiples of just that block. So we can plan for our structure as well as kind of have it be random. But I love the fact that if I don't have that block balanced well on, it will fall off. Blocks can be really challenging for some of our kids with fine motor needs, and we don't always give them those opportunities they need. This I can access with just a finger or another access point where I can move it along the iPad screen, right? And that's what I really love about this. But let's talk a little bit more about block play in general. Okay. It is really critical in helping understand so many important concepts in geometry, number, measurement, and there is just the same way with counting, there is a hierarchy of block skills. So the first is carrying and toting, where we're just picking up and putting blocks in a bucket and moving them around, right? Then it's building and knocking them down, right? Then it's bridging, where we realize that we can take two blocks and put another block on two blocks next to each other and put another block on top of it and create a structure that way so that we can attach our blocks. And then we're talking enclosures where we can create blocks and make an enclosed space that we can put other things in. The next level goes up to representational building. And by the time we're hitting representational building, we're talking like 4 years of age, right? 4 to 5 years of age, where we're building something that's a real structure. And then getting into units of units and complex structures. And so that goes all the way from very early on with young children of less than a year, kind of just putting things in and wanting, as they start walking, being able to move those around and going up from that. So some of the things that we can do with traditional blocks to be able to make block play easier is we can put Velcro on them. This happens to be a screenshot from Amazon of like a set that comes with blocks, but you can just go and take your blocks that you have. It requires a lot less precision than for that student with fine motor needs to be able to put them together. I actually had a teacher whose classroom I walked into a few years ago, and she had a very mixed abilities classroom. She had kids that were ambulatory and running around and very busy. And then she had kids with significant motor needs who were completely non-ambulatory and had very little ability to move their arms and extremities. And I looked at them like, why don't you have any blocks? And she's like, well, because that child over there pitches them and it hits that child over there who can't put up their hands to block themselves, can't move out of the way. The child wasn't being mean, he was just very young and developmentally young, and that was part of how he was playing, was pitching blocks. And so I said, gosh, block play is so important. And so we did a little troubleshooting, and what we came up with, and I'm just gonna show it here, is these are, there we go, foam blocks. So they're squishy. And so we got her to get foam blocks. And then if the kid did pitch the foam blocks, it didn't hurt the kid that it got pitched at, right? I can as I'm hitting myself in the head with the foam block, right? I also like these because again, with those holes, while it took a little precision to do it, it'll stick together, right? So just some different things there. And then when you have foam blocks, the other thing you can do is you can put them in your water table. And the friction from water on the foam blocks will help them stick, but even better, if you've got shaving cream and blocks, then they really stick together. So again, it assists those kids with those more fine motor needs to be able to engage with those blocks. Okay, and then I just kind of wanted to point out again that whole idea of making learning life-size. These are like giant foam blocks, right? These are giant dominoes you can see from like the size of a hand, but this is more the idea like those giant foam blocks. So again, to give those kids those opportunities to make that learning really large for them. So let's talk really quickly about shapes. Shapes, just like numbers, can be composed and decomposed to make new shapes. Shapes are defined and classified by their attributes, which is like their edges and their points and their sides. A flat surface of solid shapes are two-dimensional shapes, right? And then we've got our three-dimensional shapes too. Couple of quick ideas for the idea around composing and decomposing shapes is that if you can find a light bright out there anymore, this is so awesome for students with visual impairments, is making your light bright be a geoboard. So you've got your light bright, you've got your pegs in it, and then the kids are using those rubber bands on that light bright to make it. And it's great for those kids with visual impairments because of the light behind it and that dark on there. So if you can find geoboards out at light brights out at a garage sale, or if you've got one sitting around somewheres, go for it. This is, again, another app from the Math Learning Centers, which I love, and it's their geoboard. There are other geoboards that are out there. There are other, this is not the only one. Again, I'm showing this because it's so easy to use on different devices. So with this, I can click on, and I actually, all I have to do is even click on that and I can put those together. And then I can pull those to be able to make my shapes, right? So if I wanna, oops, let's drag that one to be able to go. So that's the math, that's the geoboard from Math Learning Centers. And of course our regular traditional geoboards, but this is, again, fine motor wise, a lot easier for some students to be able to manage and be able to get that. It has different shapes. I have my square, my rectangle, and my circle for that geo board. Another Math Center app that has to do with it, and I'm not going to click on this right now, but is their pattern blocks. Another great one. I love the fact that those are easy to move, that we can change the colors and all of that in order to have it for different visual impairments. And oops, I guess I did click on that, but I'm not going to take the time to show that one right now. Just to make sure that I was not only showing, you can also do this, the Illuminations tool from the NCTM, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. They have their patch tool. There's some nice features about the patch tool in that you can rotate the, let me click on that really quickly, that you can rotate the blocks with the, you know what? I think one of the issues with this is it may be flash-based, which is not going to work anymore. So even better for the Math Learning Center apps is that it's not flash-based. This one did load, so maybe it's not. We'll have to see. So again, if I put that on there, I can use this to, let's do one that you can see the rotations more. I can use that to rotate. So I'm not physically, I'm just clicking. Right? I didn't have to turn anything to be able to rotate that. I can, same thing here, where I can click and it'll flip it like that. And then it also has the ability where it snaps to. So as I'm moving, if I have the snap to on and I move this over, it'll grab it. I don't have to be as precise. So some nice things with that. Let me go on. I really don't have that many more slides to show you guys. So I'm just going a little more than I did the other days. So this is just a reminder for the people that came to my other two sessions of what makes an effective early childhood app, that it should be open-ended, that it promotes literacy, language, vocabulary, or math without drill and kill, that it's engaging, rich engaging activities for interactivity and control by the user, encourages movement, encourages interactions with adults or peers. It's culturally diverse and free of stereotypes and meets that developmental need. And I was just going to show you guys one of my favorites. Of course, cooking and math are great, right? Cooking and math are awesome. They go together so well. And this is just a real fun one that I like. So we can make our cookies from scratch. We can use pre-made cookie dough. It gives you that recipe in there to mix that cookie dough, but look what you can do. So you can talk about, we've got to tap those eggs to crack it, right? We've got to put our flour. We could have been talking about the amount in there and how many things are we putting in, right? We could do all that counting. We can mix it all up. Okay, and then we get to make cookies. And we can talk about how many cookies do we want to make, right? We could arrange those like a 5-frame, right? And then I get to bake my cookies. We can set the timer. We're going to make it really fast. Okay, cookies are done. It says sweet. And then I get to decorate them, right? So I can talk about, I want, how many gummy bears do I want? How many chocolate candies do I want? So just a super fun one to have that open-ended play around math and understanding. So I wanted to remark that with this presentation in particular, you could do all of these things, tackle all of these ideas, big ideas around math without technology. But almost everything in this can be done using technology. And so this was just another play on that block stuff, right? So I could have my blocks app, but I could also use found things around the house and engage in block play. So even though we're talking about shapes, we don't always have to have those traditional blocks if we're working on things. So just to kind of leave you with that, I have all the resources that we talked about, some different position statements and such. What app is the cookie dough maker? It is called Cookies. I know, I come up with the most ridiculous apps like Magnetic Alphabet, and this one is called Cookies. It is called More Cookies. More Cookies on the App Store. More Cookies. I'll pull that down so you can see that. More Cookies is the name of the app. These people they are like, not necessarily, they make really cute apps, but they're naming, right? So, and then I just wanted to remind people that I am back on Tuesday and Thursday of next week I forgot to put the link on here, so Mike, maybe you could put the link up to sign up for so the last one in this series is going to be on communication. It is going to be on using apps and technology to promote communication. It's not about communication apps. So I'm not going to be showing like how you use LAMP or how you use, Avaz. I'm going to be talking about apps and resources that you can use with all kinds of users, with children with developmental language delays to promote their language. We'll talk about it in the context of core vocabulary and fringe vocabulary. So I hope you guys show up for that as well, where we'll look at some really fun apps. And then that's Tuesday, and then on Thursday, I'll be doing one on visual supports. And visual supports will span more across the ages, not just necessarily early childhood. So thank you guys so much for giving me some of your time, some of your lunch, and I hope to see lots of you back here on Tuesday. If anybody has any other questions, I can stick around for another minute or two, just to make sure. But thank you guys so much, and have an awesome, I have a question. What? Kelly has a question. I'll stay. I have a question. What?
Thank you, Beth, and thank you everyone for spending
You're
some time
welcome.
with us.
So Kelly has a question, so I'm just waiting for the
I know,
rest of
I
the
saw it. I'm
question.
waiting too. Kelly, we're both on the edge of our seats. There it is.
Oh, what about a student with physical disabilities that cannot use handles? You know what? I'm going to post in the resources. There's a fabulous Judy Schoonover and I cannot think of her name, another woman from Loudoun County Public Schools, just did a webinar 2 weeks ago on adapted utensils, like for writing or for art, and showed a whole bunch of really nice things in order to help students who wouldn't be able to necessarily hold something to give them that. So I'll post that in the resources, so you guys will have access to that even after I have updated that resource. So go in there and take a look at that. So that would provide with some of those for having an adapted for an iPad or for other things that you'd be working on. You're welcome. So thank you guys, and I think that's it, Mike. I will see you I'll see you, Mike, on Monday for whatever it is you're doing on Monday, but I'll see everybody else, I hope, on Tuesday.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.